250 years. 250 flipping years the United States is about to celebrate since it was granted independence from Great Britain, or gained independence from Great Britain. And needless to say, we've made tremendous progress as a nation throughout those years. Building railroads, monuments, not the Confederate ones, screw those traitors. Going to space, repairing crumbling infrastructure to lift us out of an economic depression, the New Deal. Building new highways, which if you watch my videos, you'll know I have mixed feelings about that one. Finding new vaccines to cure diseases or prevent them, rather. Civil rights, environmental protections, the birth and growth of our cities, building skyscrapers and whatnot. I could go on. There are many things to be proud of as a nation. Naturally, like any country, we also have our fair share of tragedies. The biggest example of this being the 9/11 attacks, which nearly killed 3,000 people and is still considered the worst attack in modern history. Maybe even history, but definitely modern history. Not to mention the mass shootings we've had, especially recently. There's been a very big uptick in that. We've also had the Oklahoma City bombing in '95, which killed 168 people. And aside from being the victim of things like that, there's also been a lot of bad and evil things the United States has done, like westward expansion, or commonly known over here as Manifest Destiny, in a history classroom. And that came at a bloody and genocidal cost of our native inhabitants. We just, said, nope, you gotta leave, or be killed. Or both. It was actually both. 2 wars in the Middle East following the 9/11 attacks, which led to countless civilian deaths, especially in Iraq. Slavery, and then even after slavery was abolished, we still have continued oppression of our black population. Of course, I already mentioned the Confederacy, which directly led to the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. And then we've also had segregation, Jim Crow, and we also have discrimination of other groups, like, say, people on the LGBTQ category, on the spectrum there, the handicapped, and more recently, the transgender individuals. The whole transgender sports debate, which has been raging for years now. Yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. However, the progress we've made with some of those latter things mentioned have been backtracked and erased by a lot. Now, during our bicentennial in 1976, the US wasn't in a great place either. Sure, the Vietnam War had concluded just a year prior, with our involvement ending a few years before that, not to mention the Watergate scandal, which took down then President Richard Nixon, but things were still very bleak. The economy was very sluggish, and with seemingly endless inflation, or stagflation as it's commonly known. Weak and ineffective leadership from Gerald Ford, Nixon's successor, and his vice president. Wages weren't keeping up with the cost of living. Sound familiar? Oh, and didn't we have a bit of an oil crisis during this time? We did, didn't we?
Something very familiar about all this.
Now let's fast forward to the present day. Donald Trump is currently in his second non-consecutive term, and with the help of billionaires and other goons, they've managed to dismantle our regulatory state one by one, particularly with the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Really, it should be called the Department of Government Inefficiency, because that's kind of what we're dealing with. And they've slashed the Department of Education, Social Security, Meals on Wheels, pediatric cancer research, food safety inspections, weather forecasting, leading to inaccurate weather forecasts and hazardous weather advisories, which has killed people, by the way, especially in Texas back when we had those pretty nasty floods in the central part of the state, which unfortunately killed all these camp goers. I'm sure you've heard about that. Camp Mystic, ring a bell? Scientific research, medical research, things that actually make the country great. He's also implemented tariffs on virtually every other country, leading to higher prices. He's launched wars and threatened to launch others. We all know about the war in Iran, which is sort of ended, but there's also that little something on Iran's southern coast that seems to be of strategic economic importance to the world. That being the Strait of Hormuz, which roughly one third of the world's oil is transported through, as well as fertilizers for, food. So, yeah, we have a bit of an oil crisis going on right now, just like we did in the 70s, albeit for different reasons. Our allies no longer trust us. We're harder to do business with and negotiate with because we're run by a bunch of psycho retards who wouldn't know a solution to a problem if it hit them over the head with a damn crowbar. We also have AI data centers being planned left and right and built. Thankfully, there's been a lot of backlash against those godforsaken things. And here's some food for thought. Emigration from the United States has reached their highest level since the Great Depression. Gee, I wonder why. That's a tough one. I can't put my finger on why that's the case. My point is, corruption is rife. Our president is trying to force a legacy upon himself by slapping his name on all sorts of things. News outlets who are critical to him are being threatened with censorship by having their broadcasting licenses revoked and canceled. This is all insane authoritarianism not seen since King George III imposed his reign on the 13 colonies. Now, that may sound hyperbolic, but I can assure you it's not. There's a lot more I can say about the current state of affairs, but after all this being said, you have to ask yourself, did we really make it 250 years as a country? On paper, sure. On a globe, absolutely. But our democratic institutions and our Constitution seem to suggest the plug has been pulled on us Terry Schiavo style. Too soon? Anyway, I could go on here, but I'm not trying to sit here and tell you not to celebrate our 250th anniversary. Of course not. You do you. Set off those fireworks, grill up some hot dogs, some burgers, some ribs, hopefully brisket. Love that stuff. Obviously, we have the World Cup going on here along with Mexico and Canada. But our institutions that have held this country together for so long have greatly fallen apart over the last year or so. So, again, did we really make it 250 years as a country? In the words of Make Me Bad 35, I beg to differ.